This is episode 11 of the Anti-Social Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to the new listeners, and thanks to everyone who has been listening all the way through. I really appreciate all the positive comments and feedback, and just taking the time to listen to it. It means a lot and definitely motivates me to continue to find people to chat to. This episode is not brought to you by my two complete collections of Jurassic Park cards from 1993. I'll take a few photos of these. I didn't, as opposed to my Stacey Orban card from a few episodes ago, I could not possibly pick out a particular card, so I'm just going to take photos of a few pages from the book. But these were all the rage when the movie came out. I remember seeing the movie in a cinema that had air conditioning, which was actually just ceiling fans, and it was one of those legendary movies that everyone still raves on about now. Even with new movies for Jurassic Park coming out now, everyone keeps gravitating back to the original. It's amazing considering how many years ago the first movie was, that it still is cool to watch, and it's still, production-wise, is still pretty top-notch. The Jurassic Park cards they're all the rage, and there was two different series, and I can't see the names of what series they are, but you'll probably recognize them. Actually, one was Topps, and then that was the cheaper one, and then the more expensive one was by, I can't even see what it was. Dynamic Marketing. I don't even know if that's the right company, but so one was like 90 cents and the other one was like $1 or 99 cents, and so everyone, sort of the povo people, would go and get the Topps edition, and the kids who had a little bit more pocket money went and bought the more expensive one. And I just happened to, after a while, when the cards started to become unpopular, I started picking up the more expensive cards and completing the set. So I found these in a box, a little bit tattered and worn, but I chucked them in my Ultra Pro sleeves, and they're sitting in a card folder now, just sitting here collecting dust. But it's cool to look back on them and remember the memories. 93, I was in year 4 then. I was living in Rockhampton. So it was Jurassic Park was very much a part of my life as a kid. And this was just before the NBA trading cards started to really kick in. And this was sort of my introduction into the trading card world as a kid. So this episode is not brought to you by my two complete sets of Jurassic Park trading cards. I'll take a few photos, chuck them up on the Fake Sponsors photo gallery on Facebook, so you can get on there and have a look and trade any stories of whether you had these cards and saw the movie, and did you trade between friends, and whether you still got them or not. I was actually looking to see if I had any missing ones so I could do a shout out, but it looks like I've actually got the complete sets, which is pretty cool. But I actually went to see if I had any doubles, but I couldn't find any, so maybe they've just been thrown out in the years gone by. It's a bit of a funny one to look back on. Definitely dinosaurs were all the rage back then, and I guess they kind of still are now to a certain degree. So yeah, I'll put some pictures up so you can check them out. So episode 11. Episode 11 is a friend of mine that I've known for quite a few years by the name of Stephen Ryan. He used to be somebody that was heavily involved in the music scene. That's how I met him. We lived just down the road from each other and had a lot of mutual friends. We used to hang out a lot, especially when I first moved to Sydney. Stephen used to run a website, a webzine for local metal, and did a lot of reviews, took photos, did a lot of shows, very heavily involved for a while. Did a few compilations for local artists, and definitely helped a lot of bands at the time. Since then, he's dramatically changed and gone on to bigger and better things. I'll let him sort of explain a lot of it, but a very interesting guy, and a lot of exciting things, and some different perspectives on the way that he approaches everything. So I think for all you people that are fans of sort of self-development, life hacks, people that listen to Tim Ferriss, or even stuff like Anthony Robbins and all that genre of self-development or whatever it might be. This is a really cool episode to listen to. Stephen's just done so many incredible things in the last few years, and he's only just getting started. He's got so much stuff in the pipeline. He's very switched on. He's got a great outlook on life, and I think there's a lot of cool things you can take away from this episode. One disclaimer for this one is that this was the first time I actually used my Zoom H5 outside with somebody in person, and stupid me decided to record actually outside on a very breezy day in North Sydney. So hopefully with the recording, and I put the challenge out there to Damien, if you can, hopefully the wind and whatnot will be sorted out a little bit. But there will be times where we're talking and a little bit of wind will come in over the mic. But look, if you put that aside, overall, it's a great recording. It's really cool. A lot of great stuff to listen to and take note of. I'll have a bunch of links. By the time this podcast is out, this particular article that he's featured in will be published, and I will have links to that as well, so everyone can check that out, and also other ways of learning a bit more about all the things that we talked about in the episode. So this is with Stephen and Ryan, and enjoy. So here we are.
Here we are.
In North Sydney. You're on your lunch break at the moment.
Absolutely.
Only for a few more weeks.
7, yep.
Who's counting?
Not me. Yes, me.
So what are you doing at the moment?
Working as a designer in an ad agency.
Yep.
Just biding time till I jump out and do my own thing.
And you've been doing that for... you've been doing graphic design for quite a few years.
Started studying design 2004, so went straight into a design career and trying to figure out what I actually wanted to do in the meantime, and worked that out about a year or so ago. So
it's a long journey. Because I remember even when we first met, it would have been almost 10 years ago.
Decade, yeah.
And you were heavy into I think you were going to TAFE at that time doing graphic design.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
and actually, you're it was a completely different life for you back then. You were, that's how I met you through the band stuff, and you were doing your website.
The music side and writing for drama and photographing and blah, blah, You
had your website as well. It was like Pyro Music. Yeah,
there we go.
I went searching for that the other day. It's long gone.
It got to a point where there was just so much time being drained for me that I pretty much just had to pull the plug once I started full-time work. I was still running my record label and online store and stuff as well, and a little bit too much on the plate. Had to kill it.
That would have... you did that for quite a few years, and we...
7, I think. 7 or 8,
and we both lived in Marrickville, so we hung out quite a bit, especially down the Vic on the Park or wherever else. There's some big afternoons or evenings out and about. But once I moved out of that area, and I think maybe not long after that, you sort of moved away from that, or at least that circle of people, and we sort of just kind of lost contact for quite a while.
A little bit there, I had my head down, focused on my career and stuff a little bit as well, and keeping pretty busy. So
what was it? What made you decide to get out of what you were doing at that point in time? And
I think it was more, I was using my time as best I saw fit. And once I started working full-time, it made a little bit more sense to focus a bit more on the career and sort of take on some new challenges and things as well. So
there's still graphic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Just started in a small studio and sort of worked my way up there, and then left and moved into an agency to keep the learning going on. Yeah. And stopped learning a few years ago and realised I better find something else to do.
So there must have been, you said it was about a year ago you kind of worked out what you wanted to do.
Around there,
Or was there a defining moment, or was it just sort of this gradual sequence of events that sort of led you to it?
Yeah, well, actually I had a pretty tough time at my current role. So that kind of made me take a step back and think, it's going to be my last job. I don't want to keep working for other people. And so I kind of went on a mission to find, I guess, what I was really passionate about and try and make that work in something that I could kind of pursue full time. Did a lot of soul searching. I read a couple of 100 books on all kinds of things, including how to find your passion and legitimate stuff. Kept sort of digging my way through that stuff. Went on a few meditation retreats as well. Started practicing Vipassana meditation, which was an incredible experience. Very profound and deep and grueling as well.
I'll just stop you there. I think if you sort of... And I'm a bit more open-minded to it because I've been starting to read up a lot about it. I haven't gone to a meditation retreat, but I think for anybody else who's not even in that headspace would probably just think it's pretty out there.
Yeah.
Do you want to give a rundown of what one of these retreats are?
Yeah. Well, I suppose I need to preempt and just say that I was one of those folks who thought that meditation was la-di-da fluff for people that smoke too much pot or like to walk around with no shoes on and stuff, and was pretty dismissive of the whole concept. But it wasn't until a neuroscientist by the name of Sam Harris mentioned a few times some of the scientific studies that were coming out talking about the neurological benefits, those kind of things as well. I sort of, that was kind of what opened the door for me to give it a bit more of a critical look than, just dismissing it off the bat. And yeah, I started giving the practice a go and decided I'd give it a fair crack before I actually decided whether or not there was anything there. Looked into a lot of the research and stuff, and it made sense, improving empathy, happiness, well-being, decision-making, all sorts of things. So I'm like, well, give it a go. So I started listening to some guided meditation for about a year, doing about an hour a day. It's pretty serious commitment. Took a few months before I really saw any results there. Most people would probably, pull the plug at that point, but I'd seen the evidence that there were results to be had, so I just kept pursuing it. And after a point, the practice got pretty sharp and huge benefits started to flow. So I committed to maintaining that practice as a lifelong habit, and then worked my way up to a 10-day retreat, which is, as I mentioned, it was profoundly beneficial and one of the most grueling things I've ever done in my life. You basically you get woken up about 4 a.m, meditate almost all day until about 9:30 at night, have a few meal breaks, but other than that, it's pretty intensive practice. The idea there is to sit for at least an hour without adjusting your posture as well. No clearing your throat, anything. So it's mentally quite tough. And also there's no eye contact with any other people, no talking, no books, no radio, nothing. So there's a few other people around, but you feel pretty isolated, and it's a really introspective, internal kind of experience. After a few days, some pretty incredible stuff starts to happen if you really focus on the practice. And some profound insights came of that. And yeah, so it's something, I actually did a second retreat about a year later. Yeah. That was well worthwhile as well. As I say, very tough though. It's a real battle mentally to sit through there, and on the first day when it's 2 hours in and your back's aching, or you've got a dead leg and you're facing another 110 hours or something of the same. It's a tough one.
I just think of that, I don't know if you've seen the John Safran stuff.
No.
There's one series he did versus God, and he went to a Zen Buddhist retreat.
Yeah, and probably a bit of chanting and some interesting stuff going on.
But it was one where they had to completely sit there silent, similar sort of thing, no moving, nothing. Yeah. And they would walk around and basically if they saw a twitch or anything like that, they'd pull them into the middle and just whack them across the back with a giant stick. Just to center them and like strip the ego away.
Yeah, right.
And it was a bit more extreme than what you've done.
I think what I did was a bit tamer. The same principles have actually been extracted from Buddhism, but there's no religious connotation, so it's completely secular practice. And you'll actually find that if you ask enough people, particularly in the corporate world and the startup world and stuff, running companies, dealing with high energy lives with a lot of stress and that kind of thing, that most of these people have a daily practice, whether or not they're too vocal about it. And something that I've integrated, and it's been really helpful for me to think well, and also it's given me an ability, I guess, to not get buffeted around by the winds of change and emotions and events that go on. I'm kind of fairly immune, I think, to being shaken up by stuff that happens. And that's all come out of just the whole idea of the practice, which is just to observe things as they are and thoughts and sensations and things that arise rather than reacting.
It's like a mindfulness.
It is practice. Mindfulness. Yeah, mindfulness and Vipassana are kind of interchangeable terms, but it's been really helpful. I mean, I've done a lot of stuff in the last couple of years that, had I not gone through that practice and kind of firmed up my ability to just sort of not get knocked around, I would have been a bit too much of a wimp to sort of take the risk or take the action. Or
I've read one book inspired by a couple of Australian psychologists about mindfulness. I can't remember it's like Mindfulness for Life. I can't remember the authors, but it's just, it was a hard book to get through, not because it was hard to read, but just getting your head around it. Like the concept's so simple, but to be able to practice it and not master it, but just be able to have that awareness on a daily basis, especially when you're in those situations where you're getting tested and your instinct is to go into autopilot and whatever that reaction is, that knee-jerk reaction, which is usually bad. It's just a really hard, like I just kept reading that book and having to put it down, and it was a real sort of really hard to get my head around to try and work it out. So it's
it may have helped a bit more, I guess, if you'd already practiced and you're a little bit able to relate a little bit more. But it's been pretty helpful for me. Probably one of the probably 5 most significant positive things I've ever done in my life. It's just given me a great, I don't know, it's almost like a mental safety net there. Like I know that even if everyone I knew and loved and cared about disappeared and every possession I had was gone and I was just locked in a dark cave the rest of my life, I'd have the time of my life. Really. I mean, I think Sam Harris mentioned a while ago, I thought it was a really great way of conveying things, that in a prison system, the harshest form of punishment is solitary confinement. Even most people in that sort of situation would prefer to be in the company of rapists and pedophiles and murderers than alone in a room. But yeah, with the practice of mindfulness, you'll find that being alone in a dark room, eyes closed, is one of the most fulfilling, content and blissful places you can find your way to. So
it's sort of like a lot of those political prisoners, those sort of those people that have redefined, the human spirit or whatever, and they're the people who've been locked up in solitary confinement, and usually a lot of them have practiced some sort of, like, whether it's a faith-based thing or some form of meditation or something, just to get them through and have strength and whatever. So it's still new to me. I got this app a while ago. I can't remember who. I was listening to some podcast, it might have been Tim Ferriss, and he was talking about Headspace app. It's for beginners for meditation. And it's similar to the Sam Harris stuff as far as those couple of sound bites that he's got on his SoundCloud page. But it's a 10-day thing where it's literally 10 minutes and it's really sort of easy stuff in. I got 7 days in and then got distracted. So I'm going to go back and start again instead of finishing off the last 3 days. But it's a hard thing, especially for me. I sort of look at it and I'm always thinking about something else that needs to be done. I'm going, I'd rather be doing this.
We all are.
And then... But then when we start doing the other thing, then we realise that we don't really want to do that. We want to do something else, and you keep hopping along instead of just stopping and just doing one thing at a time. And,
I know,
and the meditation thing's obviously a massive tool to help you.
It is.
Just focus on one thing and not try and have your hands in all directions to try and grab things. So,
I think it's an incredibly useful tool to have in the kit of life. Absolutely. Sidetrack.
Sidetrack.
Back to the journey, I guess. So I did a bit more soul searching as well. I was helped out by all kinds of things along the way: books, mentors, meditation, even a few psychedelics along the way as well, just to kind of get a new perspective on things and really find out what was important and meaningful to me. And to be honest, they were incredibly insightful experiences there as well. Not that I'd recommend everybody goes out and finds some acid or something or starts eating mushrooms, but they were tools that I used with a pretty critical research beforehand, and they're very helpful as well, just clarifying what's really important for me and getting a sense of, I guess, meaning. After that, I kind of went through a course in July last year, which was just trying to find your passion and turn it into something to kind of help other people and sustain yourself at the same time. And then got very, very goal oriented. I wrote down my most important goals over the next sort of 12 months, and at the top of the list was to have a significant positive impact on as many people as I could. And number 2 was to become financially independent, so that I could spend the rest of my life doing what I choose to rather than being obliged to do some stuff that I have to. And after a little while there, I kind of realized that I had a huge passion for something that I was doing already, which was investing in property. I was really into the number side of things and just trying to make the most of my situation. Had an incredible broker as my personal mortgage broker who was also a mentor to me. And I might be a little bit slow. I think he was grooming me up for quite a while before I realised it. And then one day, I just remember listening to a book or reading a line somewhere, and it just popped back into my head, which was saying that the thing that you're most passionate about that you should really be doing with your life is the thing that keeps you up late at night and gets you up early in the morning. And I was hunched over my computer at 2:30 a.m. on a weeknight when I had worked the next day calculating my next property purchase, and went, hang on a minute, something in that. And realising that sort of a line of work would have a really positive impact on other people as well, just straight away clicked. And from there I went on a pretty focused mission to get my studies done and my accreditations, build the business and jump out. So I think 7 months after starting the studies, walking out of the job. So it came together pretty quickly after all of that stuff, but there was a fair bit of work involved there. 80-hour weeks or more for that whole period. So.
It's because you put your resignation in last week or the start of this week?
Monday this week.
Monday, yeah. And I saw you wrote online. There's like an 18-month process to get to this moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what was that? Just more you to get upskilled in the next stage in your life, and
yeah, I've been demolishing book after book after book on all kinds of areas. Part of that's been involved in the process, learning to communicate better, all sorts of stuff. Like I realize you can learn anything at all. Period. So, you want to cook better, you want to dress better, you want to manage your time better, you want to learn to speak languages more, whatever it is. So that 18-month period, I've been kind of put a huge funnel at the top of my mind and just been dumping stuff into it. I've even read books on relationships and family, which I have no intent on pursuing either of those anytime soon, but useful stuff to have. And February this year, I studied a few things that weren't super relevant to what I ended up doing, but just along the way to learn a bit of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, late February this year is when I actually started my mortgage broking course. Yeah. And then a few months of accreditations and things like that and getting set up. And then around June, I sort of started to really build things up. So been a lot of personal development and growth and learning and stuff. And I've also taken every opportunity I can to expand my network of people that are positively influencing me.
Yeah.
So I've realised the old adage that you're the average of your 5 closest friends is absolutely true in every way.
Yeah.
You have the same kind of health, income, relationships, outlook on life. So I've made a pretty concerted effort to be strategic about who I've been spending time with, and that's had a massive effect as well.
Yeah, cool.
So, yeah.
Cool. It's I was going to mention about the mentor thing because it's I'm starting to understand it now, but it's really a case of finding the right people as well. But for a lot of people, they probably just probably think it's sort of like the meditation game, isn't it? It's like it sounds a bit out there, a bit crazy. That you'd have somebody that you sort of you use as a resource and guidance and an example to try and work towards. So it's obviously been a big thing for you.
I can't emphasize how important it's been, to be honest. I was the same kind of mindset, like I don't need help from anyone else, I got it covered, blah blah. But when you read enough books and they all say the same thing, get a mentor, get a mastermind group of like-minded, whatever it is, you probably start to listen a little bit there and do it for a little while, see some results, and it's been just incredible. I have mentors in my life now that are just model human beings. They've got incredibly happy families, really fulfilling lives. They're healthy, they're wealthy, they're wise, they contribute to the community, they have balanced lifestyles. And that sort of stuff just by osmosis really sort of rubs off on you. I have a friend who retired about 3 months ago as well, same age as me, and he's built a business at a similar rate, and I'm like, hang on a minute, well, he's a normal human, I'm a normal human, I can probably repeat the same process. And also hanging around people who are achieving stuff that you thought was impossible or close to, it expands your vision of what is possible. When I first moved to Sydney, I had financial goals now that bring a smile to my face at how attainable they seem to be. But where I'd grown up in the circle of people that I'd grown up with, I was aiming pretty high there. So
that was your plateau. That was your peak where you were trying to achieve out of your own class of people and
exactly.
But then suddenly your class of people changes.
That's right.
So your peak increases.
Absolutely. And it's just it's a really powerful effect, just hanging around people that are doing stuff that you want to do or achieving things that either you want to achieve or haven't seen as possible before. Really inspiring and motivating. And you also find, I think, that people have been quite successful in different areas of life, generally speaking, are some of the best people you'll find. They're helpful, they're generous, they're kind, they show empathy, they go out of the way to help, and it seems to be a common denominator. So
I was going to say, because you've helped me and my fiancée Jess to buy our first house, so that seems to be going quite well at the moment. So we've exchanged contracts and in the settlement period now. It's cool. It was a bit daunting at times and a bit frustrating because it's all new and there's so many people involved in the process. And the thing that I lived really strongly by was that if you wanted something to be done, you'd do it yourself and get it done. And then when suddenly you're at the mercy of others and relying on other people to finish a stage in the process, it gets quite frustrating, and you sort of have to let go of things and just go, it is what it is, and just wait. But I was saying to Jess a little while ago, and I was blown away just how much she wanted to help. Because a lot of people, it's more of an agenda point of view where, it's a commission thing, or what am I going to get out of this situation? So it's I'm curious to get a bit more of an insight of where your mindset is with just being generous and helping other people, because I'm starting to learn that a bit more now. And there's all the cliched things that I've heard all through my life. They suddenly start to make a bit more sense now. They're not just sayings for the sake of sayings. There's a bit of meaning behind them.
Absolutely.
But, giving, the more that you give, the more that you get. And it might not be a direct thing, but your life just gets has more purpose and whatnot.
Oh, absolutely. I think in terms of the broking space, I hate to say it, but I'd say somewhere probably close to 95% of brokers out there are more transactional. Like, if you come and you want a loan, they'll hook you up with a loan and off you go, call, make the commission, see you later. And that's all good and well if that's what they want to do, but longer term in a business, it might not be the best model if you help somebody sort of purchase one property and then you're done with it. But I haven't moved into this space because it's something that I want to do for income. The reason that I've moved there is, as I said, I set those goals of having a positive impact and stuff like that, and it just aligned. So I see a lot more value and get a lot more fulfillment and joy in helping people to make the most of their situation, and also being a bit of an enabler for people who might be thinking about buying or investing but don't either have the confidence or the knowledge or the network of people to sort of help them through the whole process. And the philosophy where, basically I just try to give as much value as I possibly can and forget about the money. Like, but the truth be told, I haven't even looked in my business bank account yet. I'm not paying any attention to how much money is coming through. That'll take care of itself. Just look after people first, and the money will come. And at the end of the day, you only live once, so I want to have the biggest possible impact I can on as many people as I possibly can. This is stage one. Help probably a few hundred people along their financial goals, and probably help a few people retire a few decades early. Not bad, but it's just sort of stage one. And as you say, a lot of those old sayings really seem to come true.
I just keep laughing, like when I read something and I go, it's the old saying, living in the moment. And all these things, and I go, I've known these sayings, but just you don't take notice of it, and suddenly all these things start coming back, and they start making sense. You go, that's right, because I keep telling everyone that. I always give advice and say, hey, live in the now, and now I'm actually realizing what I've been telling everyone, and it's just it's more than just the phrase. There's a lot more meaning behind all these things. So, there's a lot to it, and you realize that. One of the big ones that got me incredibly, I mean, I don't believe in any hooky crap about the universe making things happen or whatever, but I heard a while ago that a great saying which says when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And about 3 or so years ago on a property investment forum, a bloke reached out to me and said, I've been following your posts, do you want a mentor? Okay, sure, no, why not? And completely selflessly he helped and advised and gave me some input and told me one of the most important things to get right is your mindset. And that I listened. I went and started reading some books on how to change my thinking. By the time I figure out what I want to do with my career, I've already got a mentor that's been helping me along the way there. And a lot of those sayings that sort of float around, you hear them so much you don't really let it soak in, but there's some amazing wisdom to be found. As a comparison, and I'm going way off the mark here, but it's like listening to an album or a song that you were so obsessed over, but you've overplayed it, and you just after a while you're just hearing it, and you lose attention of it, and sometimes then after a while you get sick of it, it becomes old, and you leave it go, and then you come back a few months later or a few years later, and you listen to it, and you suddenly go, like that. It's even more than what I remember it to be like originally. So I guess it's a similar sort of thing. Actually, I was talking to someone today about it on the way here. And the saying that you said before, like when you're ready to learn.
When the student's ready, the teacher appears.
And talking about this person was saying, I feel like I'm a bit late to the party. I'm 32 and but I'm happy that it's happening now. And I sort of feel the same way in an aspect of it all, but at the same time, I was never ready before.
Yeah.
Before now, before 6 months ago, before a year ago, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
You know, head was elsewhere, different priorities, different interests, and I think you can't. You know, someone can tell you, and you can take the information in, but it's only when you want to and you're ready that things start to dramatically change after that. So sometimes it's the late bloomer thing, or it's whatever it may be. It's never too late to pick something up or change your way of thinking.
Oh,
so it's
absolutely, and it's all a matter of where you are in life, I guess, and what you're looking for as well. I could say that I misspent the first sort of 10 years of my adult life because it didn't lead to where I am now directly, but I'm really grateful for the experiences and all this sort of paths I went down and then sort of turned back and that sort of stuff, because it's given me experience, knowledge, wisdom, made heaps of mistakes along the way and learned from most of them. And I feel like I've only in the last year and a half, 2 years, I've actually woken up. I feel like I've just woken up and I'm finally alive. I'm like, this is what it's all about. But I wasn't ready prior to then. Still doing a lot of learning and growing and getting that sort of stuff out of the system. But the future looks pretty bright. So
it's pretty exciting just even to hear like someone talking about it, because going back to what you said about the average of the 5 people that you associate with or spend time with, and I've certainly, not that I hang around any sort of slouches or anything, but it's you definitely you feed off other people, you're a sponge, and you don't always hear very ambitious language from people, and it's more of a case of day-to-day things, and when exciting things happen, it's exciting, and there's no pursuit for anything greater than what is currently happening at that point in time. So when I hear like you talking about the future or what, where you're at now and the excitement around that, you can feed off that.
That's why I'm hanging around a group of people that are all doing the same stuff. It makes a huge difference. That's, again, it's something I learned in a book. Like, please don't get the false impression that I'm taking any credit for anything I have done at all in the last few years. I've simply read and learned and done. And one of the things was to make sure that you're around the right group of people that are, positive and that sort of stuff. And it really does have an impact. I mean, I have to say I jettisoned quite a few social acquaintances with intent, just because the effect of hanging around them wasn't helpful. Somebody that's consistently complaining, or they'll catch up with you and just complain about the traffic along the way, and then how shit their week's been and blah blah blah. The one thing that people overlook a lot is just how absolutely valuable time is. The one non-renewable resource on Earth, right? We can get more money, we can't get more time. At the end of the day, if you're sitting in your rocking chair looking back over your life and thinking about all the times you spent hanging out having a beer with somebody that just whined about how their job sucks, when you could have been having a fulfilling conversation, helping somebody, learning something, spending time with family, friends, whatever it might be, you might feel like you've misspent a bit of time. And that's something that it really kind of rattled me a bit when I thought about that deeply and realised that it's pretty important to sort of optimise the way that you spend your life. You only get one crack at it, and we kind of keep going through life just tacitly assuming that we're going to live forever. Like, really, it's only until you get a big wake-up call one day that you take a step back and go, man, what the fuck am I doing watching this shit movie for the 4th time? Or, looking at people's crap on Facebook. By the way, for anyone listening that wants to get rid of that addiction, there's a wonderful plugin called, I think it's Facebook Wall Blocker or Eradicator, Facebook Wall Eradicator. Log on to Facebook, and instead of your wall, there's just a motivational quote to get off your ass and do something. One of the best life hacks that I've found in the last year. Really helpful.
I might have to work on that one. Although the horrible thing with social media for me is that...
Well, it's kind of tethered to some of your...
Yeah, it is. And, first the band and now this whole podcast thing. And that's where the majority of people are, and you're trying to communicate with people. And there's other platforms and there's other ways of connecting with people. But I do find that at times I get onto the laptop or on my phone with the intention of doing a particular task or whatever it might be to increase awareness of whatever we're doing or whatever I'm doing. But then I find that suddenly it's half an hour later.
And you're looking at cat videos.
And I'm scrolling through just whiny posts, and I'm starting to get into arguments about just crap, because someone's mindset is completely off the mark, and I want to put them back in their place. And now it's starting to get to a point where I type something out, and then I'll just delete it.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting to the point where I'm asking myself, is there going to be any benefit of me telling this person what my opinion is?
Yeah.
And unless there's something very constructive and I think the person's going to be open enough to be able to take some sort of criticism, whether it is correct or not, most of the time it's not worth it. So I sort of press delete and I quickly close the app or shut the laptop and move on to something else that's a bit more productive. But it's an addictive thing. I totally understand why people become just so absorbed by not just the internet in general, but especially social media, and Facebook's just a
there's a lot of evolutionary reasons for why that sort of stuff is addictive. And also the way the interface is designed and your little red notifications. It's like a little reward kind of cube sort of thing. So it's engineered to kind of trap us into that sort of a pull. And it's fine if people want to look at what people are up to socially and stuff, but just run the clock forward to the end of your life and add all the cumulative hours you have spent looking at photos of people's dinner or what they were up to on the weekend, or arguing with somebody about something who probably isn't going to change their mind. And where else could that time have gone? Could you have learned a new skill? Could you have reinforced your relationship with your partner? Could you have spent the same time writing thank you letters to people you know, doing kind gestures or passing it on, that kind of stuff, or learning a new skill?
And even if you're not like that selfless or ambitious, you could just be like, I don't know, at the pub drinking beer, or you could be doing something pleasure, something that
has slightly more meaning, I think, and reward to it.
A little bit more to it anyway than having your face stuck in a screen for some people hours on end. So I used to be really bad with it, and I'm still in that transitional period. But I used to make a post or an update about something, and I'd just sit there and reply to people as the notifications, as the little red flags would show up, and be almost instant, because I was always worried that people wouldn't get their questions answered, or the comments someone make a stupid comment and it would just sit there. Now I just make a post and I'll just shut the thing down and I'll go away and I'll come back like 6 hours later and I'll check it then. But I'm in progress with that. It's not an easy thing, especially with me trying to use it for a practical reason as well.
For me, it's just been a matter of having a blanket rule. I go on there to broadcast and respond to correspondence. That's it. And I batch at certain times, and that's it. I don't log on to see what's up. I log on for a purpose, to either transmit something or to reply to something, and that's it, because I was facing the same thing. You just get lost, and 4 hours later or whatever it is.
I do that with emails, and especially anything work related. And I used to just sit there and I'd have the notifications pop up on the screen, little pop-ups and whatever. I've turned all that stuff off now, and I just...
Another great trick.
I do little 15-minute blocks. Just go and either... there's a guy actually from North Sydney. He does a lot of development stuff, Guy Newman. I don't know if you've heard of the guy, it's not like unique tools, but for a lot of people in the corporate world or whatnot, it's not obvious to them because they're just so drowned. They're so drowned in what they do on a daily basis in autopilot as well. So things like turning off the alert that pops up on your screen, that's life-changing for some people. It's just incredible.
Absolutely.
It's so good. I speak to people that I know, and you're having a conversation with them and their screen's behind them or to the side, and the thing pops up, or their phone's not on silent, so you get a little bing, and suddenly they're down and the distraction's gone, and you realise you're just talking to yourself.
That's something that's... that I was pretty quick to stop being notified by stuff. I don't want, it sounds pretty selfish, and it is, but it's my life. I don't want other people's agendas to infiltrate what I'm doing with my time. And if you're getting notified consistently and your email pops up or something like that, it's super distracting.
That's it. Everyone wants an answer straight away, so everything's urgent, and it comes down to you. I think this other guy mentioned trying to define the difference between importance and urgency, because everyone thinks everything's urgent, but then you've got to go back and go, okay, well, on the scale of urgency to importance, where does it sit? And is it something that while that person's jumping up and down screaming, is it really important? Or if not, can I put it off and come back to it later, despite how much this person's kicking up a stink? So it's definitely been defining, just changing your mindset with that. But I'll have a 15-minute block where I'll either delete, file, like an FYI, or I'll set a calendar invite to do later on. Or if there's something I can do under 2 minutes, like a quick response, then I'll do it. But I'll just do it within a 15-minute block. Then I'll go back to what I'm doing after that and continue on. Yeah. But I used to live through my emails, and I know a lot of other people do.
Been there, done that. I mean, when I had my music side, and also I was getting literally probably 40, 50 plus emails that required, or at least I felt required response or action per day, and hundreds that were just coming through, and it was absorbing a stupid amount of time. I actually have a trick in Gmail where I set filters to mark stuff automatically as read by certain senders. So if I'd like to get newsletters but don't want to get distracted by 30 newsletters popping up every week, I have them marked as read. I can go back and search later if I want to. Yeah.
It's I've got some automatic redirects into certain folders through Outlook.
Rules and things,
So I just know that there's certain email addresses or certain people that I associate with that are just not that important. And so it just goes into a folder with their name on it or whatever the topic is. And I'll watch that little blue number increase, the number of unread. And then, when I have some time, I'll go through and have a quick skim through them. But otherwise, it stays out of my inbox. And that's the other thing. I just make sure that I do whatever I can to keep that completely clear. Like there's zero. At the end of the day or at the end of the week, when I close it all down, there's nothing in there. So at least whatever comes in overnight, that's all it is. And it's not going to be as daunting.
Can I turn the tables and ask you a time management question?
Yes.
Do you have a way of structuring like a to-do list in the day or getting through stuff? Like how do you handle what's on the plate for the day?
I used to do to-do lists, and then I'd find that I would do all the easy things in the to-do list, and the hard thing, the most crucial thing, the one thing that would change and make everything easier would be the thing that would carry on over to the next day, and then the next day, and the next day. So I do all these little things that are more or less, they're good that I'm achieving them, and I get the little brownie point, the little green tick, but they're not changing anything. So now I've changed it a little bit, but I've decreased my to-do list because I think another flaw that I had was I'd put as many things on there as possible to make it look really impressive. So then when you put at the end of the day, if you're writing it down, you strike it through. Yeah, it's fantastic. Look how productive I am.
Yeah, that's right. Cook dinner at 6:15 p.m. Yes, I did it.
That's it. So it's so I realised that a lot of that stuff's just it's not necessary to write it down. And
a lot of those tasks can fall within another major outcome as well. That's a trick that I've learned is to be more outcome focused than task focused. What you're trying to get the bigger picture done.
That's it. So now, like for instance, the last couple of days, I've had 5 things on there, and I've given myself a time period of when to do it. But I've given myself so much leeway in between that whether it's a leisure activity or something else that I want to do, whether it might be something I want to read or watch, that still I'm going to get some benefit out of, but may not directly associate myself or link in with the task at hand. I'll just get these things done within that allocated period of time. So it won't be like a 10 to 10:15 sort of thing, because that sort of falls out the window. Rigid. And you lose motivation. So I would just say something like for instance, we had to go and finalise some of the paperwork for the loan at the bank. So I had allocated an hour to do that. So when I was on my way to the bank, I'm looking at the time and I go, okay, all right, it's 11 o'clock now. All right, by 12, we're out of here. And then you got Jess going, I just want to have a look at this and I want to look at that. So no, let's go and find something else to do and go from there, not get distracted by it. And then at home, it's the same thing. Like I'll allocate, if it's just 15 minutes, and that way, I'm just a little bit conscious of the time. I have a bit of a look at the time to see what it is when I start it. And then I find I'm a lot more aware of when distractions come in as well. Like
when you're working to
I've got a task at hand, it's 15 minutes, I can smash it out in 15 minutes, I know I can do it, but then suddenly something else happens, or I have a thought that comes through in my head, I go, I'd rather do that. Well, that sounds exciting, I might do that. And you go, no, hang on, 15 minutes, that's all it is, and it gets done. So it's not a perfect model, but it's way better than what I was originally doing with that massive 20 point to-do list that I would just tick off the easy, useless things by the end of the day.
I've learned a fairly similar approach. I think it was a Brian Tracy book, or 10 Brian Tracy books. I think he mentions it pretty often, but the whole idea of organising your tasks based on their priorities. So I'll have a list, whether it's 5 or 50 things for a day, but I'll flag the absolute most important thing is an A task.
Yeah.
Like A, and if there's a couple of those, A1, A2, and I always focus on the most important task first thing. I get up pretty early in the morning to knock that over.
Right.
Then
What time do you get up?
It fluctuates between 4 and 5 a.m. I go to bed when I'm tired.
It doesn't sound as crazy anymore to me because I'm starting to get up earlier and earlier.
The older you get, I think, at least for some
people. I understand why old people get up early.
Yeah, that's right.
Go to bed at 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah, but that system of organising tasks by that, A's got to get done. B's, you know, really important but not critical. C's might be nice to get to. D is stuff to delegate and not even. And E, you end up just eliminating. It's like so unimportant that it's not worthwhile. That's been a great system because as long as I tick off the A's that day, I've done the most important thing. One of the holes I fell into, like you, was doing the little stuff first. Do all those little C's and D's.
Yeah, get them out of the way because they're easy.
10 things off.
Yeah.
But it doesn't get you any closer to where you need to be.
Not at all.
It's been a great system.
Yeah, it's there's a book called The One Thing. That's and I've got it like it's just my screen saver thing on my phone. It's just what is it? What's the one thing that I can do now that makes everything else unnecessary? And
that's a great question to always ask yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I wake up in the morning and my alarm's going off and I turn it off and I have a look and straight away I'm already thinking about whatever's been sitting in the back of my head, whether it be a task I've been putting off for a long time or whatever it might be. But it's totally true. It might just be one thing that day, one challenge, and if you can just get through it, then either everything else is a hell of a lot easier or the rest of it just doesn't even matter.
Well, there's a great quote. I think, I don't know, I might get the words wrong, but so don't quote me exactly, but the best idea in terms of getting tasks done and stuff, an old concept of eating a live frog first thing in the morning, because that's the worst thing that's going to happen to you all day. And the idea there is if you knock over that massive pain in the ass number one priority task, nothing's going to be tougher the rest of the day, and it'll put a wind behind your sails because you've done something important that's moved you towards whatever you're wanting to do. So it gives you a bit of momentum through the day.
It's like that. It's like the disease of procrastination, you know. And I've done it. You leave things to the last minute, and you suffer for the entire period of time because it's just sitting there. It's lingering in the back of your mind. It's a total mental thing, and then finally, when you get it done, and it could be at the 11th hour, and then you realise, suddenly all the pressure's off. And then I used to laugh, especially in school, and you'd have like the A grade students, and you get the assignment or whatever it might be, and then within the first few days it's done, and they're handing it in, and you go, teacher's pet or nerd or whatever it might be. But they had the right idea.
My idea was similar. I'd get the assignment done so I could drink.
But that's it. You could relax then. You could just do whatever you want and the pressure's off. Whereas everyone else would go out drinking
first.
But that's it. And then start panicking in the end. But I think even through all that period where they're putting it off and they're still enjoying themselves, it's still lingering there.
It's like a burden.
It comes back into the mind every once in a while. You go, that's right. I've got to think about it. I've got to come back to it. And now I'm it's taken a long time because I still do it with certain things, but I stop myself and go, you know what? If I just do this, and how long is it going to take me? That's a big thing. That's a massive question. I'm starting to ask myself now. If this is that bad, if I actually stop and I do it, how long is it going to take me? And a lot of the time you sort of realize, oh shit, it's actually going to take me like an hour. But yet I've been putting it off for like the last month.
Absolutely.
So that sort of has put a lot of things in perspective, and I've suddenly, just even asking a question like that, my productivity has just gone through the roof. Which is incredible. So, and a lot calmer and a lot less stressed than what I've been as well. So
something I've come to learn pretty clearly over the last little while is just how many things you can do that will just completely change your life just by reading something or picking up a new technique or a habit or something like that. It might be minor, but that to-do listing for me, I can't quantify how much more productive I've been, but by most standards, I've been getting a lot of stuff done in a pretty economical amount of time compared to how I had been.
Like as I said before, like reducing the amount of tasks on my list and making 4 or 5 points for the day, if that, but making them all the difficult ones, the complex ones, the ones that have been sitting there and sort of festering, or the ones that I know that if I do that, it's going to make everything easier. And usually what you find is then after you've done that, or you've got over those few hurdles earlier in the morning or whatever it might be, you end up finding that you do 20 or 30 things anyway.
Roll through everything.
That's exactly it. Your productivity goes through the roof. So you end up doing all these extra things on your list. I'm not one of those people that will add things to the list as I do them, though. I know a few people who do that. They'll start doing extra things, and they go, "Oh, I'll add that onto the list," and then cross it out straight away. Yeah.
I guess that's kind of, just a little reward for.
Yeah, I guess. Well, look, if it helps and it actually is a positive sort of thing, then fair enough. But yeah, I've definitely noticed that it's a lot easier just to have like a couple of tasks on there, and then that's it, and then everything else sort of falls into place afterwards. So
surprises me how many people don't work from to-do lists, just period, like ever. It's just it's hard for me to fathom, I guess.
I read this book. I just chucked a picture of it online yesterday. Really thin book by Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret.
Yeah.
And it's basically you've got control over what happens. Like what's the quote? You become what you think about
most of the time.
Yeah.
True, very true.
And they use the analogy of if you're driving a heavy piece of machinery or like a ship or something like that, and if you've got a captain on the ship with calculated coordinates and whatnot, 99.9% of the time it's going to make it there.
Yeah.
But can anyone fathom a ship without a captain and they just turn the thing on and just let it go? Where's it going to end up? The chances of it actually reaching its intended destination are pretty much nil.
Yeah.
So they sort of put that back on a person and go, well, look, if you don't have anything clearly defined, whether it be a long-term or a short-term thing, then how do you expect to be able to achieve anything, or even on the basic level have any happiness or satisfaction in your life? So it's just incredible.
Touched on one of the most profound things that I've learned in my entire life, which is how important it is to have clear, defined goals.
Yeah.
I had written some goals down quite a few years ago on my computer and found them a few years later. I'd forgotten about the list, but found them a few years later and had basically achieved probably 70% of what I'd written down. Some of it was pretty ambitious stuff. They were personal goals and professional goals and all sorts of stuff. One of them, one's playing in a band and stuff like that, but I started becoming pretty goal-oriented a couple of years ago, and I was absolutely astonished at the number of things that I was able to write down as a goal. I picked up the habit of writing my goals down for the next 12 months every single morning. Just really quickly, just 10, 15, or just run through whatever it is, have a significant impact on people, become financially independent, get out of my comfort zone, challenge myself at every opportunity, that sort of stuff. But part of building this business that I've started now, going to that course in July last year, an important step was to gain some credibility and that kind of a thing. And the first step for me was to get some media coverage. So straight after that course, I just started the goal habit and wrote down that I wanted to get in this property magazine and appear on telly and blah, 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 blah. And some really ambitious goals as well, like become financially independent within, X amount of time and have a sort of net worth here and blah, blah. That was stretch goals, some of those things. I always try and set a goal that's just as far as I can see, but no further, so I don't kind of talk myself out of it. And out of nowhere, within a few months, I'd crossed off most of the list. And had I not had those set as goals, I don't think any of those things would really have happened. But having them clearly defined and at the front of my mind, I was attuned to opportunities to tick things off and achieve them and stuff.
It's being aware. Like it's, you ask someone, you go, oh, well, where do you want to be in the next 5 or 10 years? Or what are the things that you want to do that you can't do now? And so everyone's usually got some sort of dream, like, whether it be, I want to have a big house or a nice car or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But it's not written down. It's not clearly defined. And so then suddenly they're telling you something, then they get distracted by it. Yeah. And then they'll never come back to that same thought again for probably 3 months.
Yep.
And then it'll just flash through their head, and then they'll keep moving on that path that they're already moving on. And so you might find with a lot of people that they just never quite get there.
Yeah.
And I think just the fact that you think about it and you write it down and you're reminding yourself is probably the biggest battle. Everything else starts to fall into place because you start looking for it, a bit more aware, and you see little opportunities. You see people talking about, that might be something that I can get something from.
100%, It's been a really powerful exercise, just being goal-oriented. The biggest lesson I learned out of that is I'm too conservative with the goals that I set. Yeah. At the time, they look ridiculous. Yeah. And then X months later or years later, when I've ticked them off, I go, oops, I'm accidentally 10 years early on that one. What next?
How unfortunate,
Yeah, that's right. Well, another thing to be said, it's something incredible happens when you set really big goals. Yeah. It's just like you get gravitationally pulled into a black hole. Just the bigger the goal, the more draw you have, the more energizing it is and exciting. When I realised that I'd be able to, probably make this my final ever job, it just like somebody put a power plug up my backside or something. I just got electrified and was jumping out of bed at 4 or 5 in the morning every day to do my studies and things. And I think if the goal wasn't so exciting and significant, I wouldn't have probably worked as hard at it.
That goes back to sometimes it's a time and a place, and sometimes people just don't have that vision at that point in time, or they just don't know what they want to do. So, and you can't always force it, but you should always at least have an open slate or be ready to absorb as much as you can, then to try and work out where you're going to go after that. So, I mean, it's taken you X amount of years up until recently, until a year or so ago, where you've then suddenly had this moment where you've gone, you know, I know what I want to do.
And that was a compounding effect of a lot of things, a lot of steps on the way, and learning and all sorts of stuff as well. I have things that I'm interested in, and I know there's a lot of things that I know I don't want to do, and I think at the moment it's the things that I don't want to do that are defining me at the moment, and where my next steps are going to be. So at the moment I'm going to run off the back of that and avoid those things, and then that should hopefully pave the way for the things that I'm going to be able to find my passions and the things that I really want to do. So it's the same as what you said, like, you know, trying to find that moment where you wake up and I'm starting to open my eyes a bit, so to speak. It's just it's hard to explain. It's really hard. I completely understand what you mean. I think the real key there is just to be walking in roughly the kind of direction you think you sort of want to be going. Stumbling your way until things clarify a little bit. As long as you're doing that, you know, you'll get to a point where suddenly everything gets super clear, and then you break into a sprint, and then strap a rocket on.
Just go for it after that. It's a case of just having that. Well, I guess it's kind of like that mindfulness where you stop in the moment before you make some form of action. You go, is this going to be beneficial to me? You know, is it going to have a negative or a positive effect on me, and I'm going to get something out of it? And a lot of the times, a lot of the autopilot actions that we make aren't positive or beneficial, productive or anything. So even if I just had that rule alone, I know I'm going to end up in a great place, because a lot of the problems that we have, and I've had, is just I've just sat in autopilot and made the bad decisions, wasted time on things that just don't matter.
Guilty as charged as well. What's been the big help for me is just being very clear on those goals, because I've had a lot of opportunities that have come up in life, and options and choices and things, and my goals basically dictate what I do. So, you know, one of my goals is to constantly step out of my comfort zone and seek every opportunity to challenge myself, learn and grow. So every time an opportunity comes up that's uncomfortable and scary, but it has the potential for me to grow and get out of my comfort, I'm all over it. And so it helps me with decision making as well, because something comes up and I'm like, does this align with my goals? Yes or no? No, see ya, yes, okay, let's go. It's simple as that.
That's it. That's it. It's just it's a whole different mental game. But the funny thing about it all is all simple concepts. Like when you give it a bit of time and it starts to click, then you realize it's all simple. But a lot of the human instinct and the things that just become, as I keep saying all the time, but the autopilot thing, it's just you create a complex situation when it's not really.
Well, those things usually they're simple but not obvious.
Absolutely. So from the property point of view, you've got how many properties now?
4.
You just acquired one.
Up in Maruka in Brisbane. I've got a developable corner block up there with a nice family home on it at the moment. So a couple of years' time, I'm planning on developing probably 8 or 12 townhouses on there, provide a bit of housing for a few people, and help myself get towards some of my impact goals down the track as well.
That will be huge, that one. But you bought, I think the rest of them are all sort of Marrickville area?
Yep. I wasn't necessarily intending on buying all in the same spot, but made sense too. So I loaded up on as much as I could, as quick as I could, and they've done okay for me. I guess they've put just kind of a baseline safety net there for the rest of my life, just from the strong growth that they've had. So it makes me a bit more comfortable financially, and it's nice, I think, also to kind of take charge of your future a little bit. So it's a pretty empowering sort of experience. But
I'm curious because, and you've mentioned it to me before, about a lot of people, especially in Sydney, but probably most places, you usually need, the the mentality towards it, you need the double income to be able to afford property. And you've just done this on your own. You own 4 properties.
Yeah.
And you've done it yourself.
Yeah, I'm happy to lay the numbers out too to give some context.
Sure. Yeah.
I started buying on $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
And unlike typical first home buyer, I didn't decide I wanted a mansion in Point Piper and a weekend getaway in Vaucluse.
Yeah.
I bought something that was less than my maximum budget, just an entry level apartment to get in on the market. And I wasn't thinking buy the dream home first. I was thinking make the right financial decision to get me on the ladder to then leverage and continue to grow. And my most recent purchase, my salary still hadn't reached $80,000 a year. So I'm currently holding about $2.4 million of properties there. And that's all on a salary of, $78,000 a year. So it just, I guess it demonstrates that it's pretty attainable for people if they actually want to do something.
Yeah.
I think a mindset issue is usually the problem more than affordability for most people. They either think that they need to buy their first home and that's the only way to do anything, and also decide that they want to buy where they want to live. The more logical thing to do is actually to look at your situation and try and work out where you're getting and go, does it make sense perhaps to invest in something first and maybe use some growth in that to invest in some more stuff and then come back around and actually buy a property to live in the future. Yeah. I'm pretty numbers-oriented sort of dude, so it didn't take much convincing when I busted out the calculator in Excel to do the numbers and realise the staggering of impact of just a couple of little decisions in my mid-20s, early 30s kind of area of life would have. So I became pretty focused on trying to make the most of the situation, but it's paid off. My property values have increased my net worth more than, in dollar terms, than all of the income I've ever earned in my entire life. And that's all happened passively by just owning the asset and letting it grow in value.
Definitely helps that you own 3 properties that are in Sydney as well, especially what's happened in Sydney over the last, especially 6 months, but let alone probably the last 2 years.
Yeah, 3 years. Yeah, I was still buying while the market was moving, so I missed a fair bit of that growth early on, but I just did what I could with what I could. But I guess that's something else that people can make the mistake of wanting to buy in their backyard first. If conditions were different, my first 3 properties would have been in Brisbane or Perth or were somewhere else. And that's why I'm buying in Brisbane now. I think people have to be a bit crazy to be looking at investing in Sydney at the moment, just purely for investment purposes. Yeah. All the fundamentals up in Brisbane are sort of there and it's waving its hands in the air going, look guys, I'm about to grow, so jump in. But yeah, it's just a matter of wanting to make it happen and doing what you need to it's
definitely just having that. It's not even an outside the box mentality. Well, I guess for a lot of people it is, and as you said, the decision of buying something where you want to live versus where you would like to live later on down the track, and what do I need to do to get to that point? So I need to get the foot in the door and buy something where I not necessarily want to live, but it's going to build my assets and build my financial position where I can then take the next step. And it might take 2 or 3 goes to get that nice place in that nice area of whatever part of the world it is. Even for us, we bought that place that's a couple of hours south, and maybe 6 months ago we probably wouldn't have thought that would be a logical decision. But we were kind of forced it in a way because it's just been so crazy in Sydney. But looking at it now, it's probably one of the best things we've ever done, because we know that it's a foot in the door. There's an asset there, and we can reevaluate it in 12, 18 months or whatever it might be. Between the both of us, we can afford to comfortably pay it off and then some. And look to use some of that extra additional money to start looking at the next property and hopefully maybe a little bit of equity. But even without that, I mean, it's a long-term thing. I'm sure you're the same. It's not about buying and selling really quickly. It's just sort of retaining for a long-term or semi-long-term.
Compounding and leverage combined are probably the 2 most amazing things in the entire known universe. And it is a longer-term sort of play. But when you look at the impact that this purchase is going to have for you guys down the track, there will be a point in time where what you've purchased has doubled in value. Whether it's 5, 10, 20 years or whatever it is, it will happen. And you'll be able to access most of that growth throughout the period that it's growing to leverage into further assets, which will then do the same thing and multiply. And you'll find yourself with what would have been a scarily disturbing amount of assets under your belt from relatively minimal effort there. And I think it really just comes down to having the right mindset, because you weren't thinking, I'll never own a place, and then just decide that's it, done, and stop thinking.
Yeah.
You were thinking, how can I? What do
Yeah.
I need to do? And realizing the importance of making that decision now. It was hard for me to see a lot of friends. Well, Sydney was going through this last sort of growth cycle, saying, you know, they're never going to own a place and complaining about how expensive Sydney properties were, especially when some of those people I knew as an individual were earning double my salary and had a full-time working partner and were complaining that they weren't able to afford to ever buy a property. And
just hearing that from my end, I'm like, oh shit, that's at least one of those salaries is probably both of mine and Jessica's combined, like easily, and it's just it's incredible. So
I think it just comes down to people being engaged enough to take a step back and go, hang on, is this important? And go, hang on, it is important. Let me think about how I might be able to achieve this, as opposed to just dismissing it immediately. That's something that I've learned throughout life, is to not be quite so dismissive of things straight away, because you'll miss out on a lot of opportunities. Unfortunately, the school system, the education system doesn't teach people how to create wealth. It teaches you how to get a job and how to memorize and repeat and get into a university perhaps, and, you know, get into the workforce and work your entire adult life for a piddly little superannuation pension.
What's the guy's name? Robert Kiyosaki.
Kiyosaki talks about that
he's big on that. Massive. Yeah.
One of the keys I got out of one of his books, Rich Dad Poor Dad, was getting out of the employee quadrant. I think actually it was cash flow quadrant. He really went into it, but most people have the employee mindset. They trade their time for money. Remember I mentioned earlier that time's that non-renewable resource. And, you know, they might migrate to the self-employed thing. The problem is, if you're sick, you don't make any money. Next step is to get to the business owner stage, where you operate a business, but you aren't required for the business to produce revenue. And then obviously the ultimate place to get to is an investor. But most people just get stuck in the treadmill of following the conventions, and they assume that they're just going to work their whole life and don't think about any other options. A lot of people rely on credit quite heavily as well, and don't think of the implications. One of the big things when, say, somebody goes and buys an overseas trip on a credit card, they're not only paying it for today, but they're paying extra because of the interest, but they're also eating into their future, because they have to recoup that money somehow by trading more time for money. And if you turn the table and go, hang on a minute, how can I maybe get an asset that will produce this kind of income for me passively instead of having to earn it? It's not hard. Like it's pretty simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. And like a 5 to 10 year timeline in investing will absolutely set anyone up for life, whether they're a super low income earner or not. And the options that provides, I mean, like 30, 40, 50, 60 plus years of adult life where you've got more choices. If you have a medical issue, you don't go bankrupt. You know, if one of your family gets really ill, you can fly to be by their side and help them out as well. And having those options. It's
the two main things that I keep reminding myself, and the reason why a lot of people shun any sort of alternative thinking is, well, one of them is that everyone else does it, so that's the way that we'll do it. So whether it be like a traditional based thing or a common model or whatever it might be, and that might be the whole thing of working for a business and being an employee under an employer. And that's just the way it is. The second one is just pure fear. People freak out about all these worst case scenarios, and a lot of the time you might find that if you sat back and went, okay, so what is the worst case scenario? What could possibly happen? You know, I'm going to quit my job. All right, so what's going to happen? I'm not going to have any money for that employer. All right, well, how long can I survive? Okay, well, I don't have any other job prospects. All right, so what assets do I have? Like if worst came to worst and I was in a desperate situation, what could I do? And after you go through all these things, you realize that I'm still alive. I'm still here, and I'll still find a way. That's it. And sometimes that perspective just sort of brings you back to earth, and you go, you know what? There's not that much to be fearful of, and you know you got to take calculated risks, and you can't be stupid about it. But a lot of the things that people hold off on are silly things, and they're things, they're fears that have been ingrained in them through their parents and their grandparents or their people you associate with, and it might be just a very not shallow, but a very I guess narrow is probably a better word, but a narrow way of thinking, because no one's experienced anything more than what it is at this point in time. So it's a huge thing.
What you touched on there about fear is a pretty important thing. I have to say, I'd say that almost everything that's really significant and meaningful and important in people's lives lies on the other side of fear and uncertainty and discomfort.
Yeah.
Almost everything. You know, you look and think about all the things you've done in your life that have been the most fulfilling and rewarding and biggest periods of growth. There's almost always a period there where you had to break through some form of fear or discomfort or learn something new or do something different. And on everybody sort of following the same model, great quote is, if you keep doing what everyone else is doing, you're going to keep getting what everyone else is getting. And I personally decided I didn't want to work my entire adult life. I also decided that I didn't want to be doing work that wasn't fulfilling. I wanted to be doing something that had an impact and was meaningful to me. And I want to have a pretty big impact on the world too. And that's not something I'd be able to achieve by just following the same sort of pattern. And actually it was a real inspiration watching my parents divorce when I was in my early to mid-20s, because they worked their butts off. Really worked their butts off their entire adult lives. And after like 3 decades each of just breaking their backs, they had hardly anything to show for it. And I basically just went, man, they have fucked up. Like, I'm sorry, but they really fucked up and I don't want to do the same thing. So that got me really thinking about what I could do to change stuff. And it's also made me realize you can really sort of achieve anything you set as a goal. I didn't know anybody who knew anything about investing, no business owners, nothing at all. I just had to start the learning process. But instead of going, oh, it's too hard, I went, this is important, so I'll kind of figure it out. And I'm a big advocate of, I guess, being a little bit different in all sorts of stuff. I mean, I've investigated all kinds of areas, including health and nutrition and things, and have some very unconventional, habits and practices and things in many areas of life. They're all based on pretty solid evidence, though. And I've consistently come up against people saying, why are you doing this, or that's bad, or rah rah, and just regurgitating inherited opinions instead of actually having something that's founded on truth or a fact.
Is there anything in particular off the top of your head that's unconventional, or something that would make people sort of go?
Well, I guess my utilization of psychedelics as tools is something. A lot of people hear the term drug and automatically assign one meaning to all sorts of different substances that have varying effects, some of which have minimal or no potential health consequences, others are absolutely horrible. And another one is my dietary choices as well. I eat an extremely low carbohydrate diet, extremely high fat. I eat plenty of sodium as well. And it's not just based on because I think it's a good idea. I've plowed through dozens and dozens of peer-reviewed studies that all point to the same conclusion, and constantly have people telling me that, oh, you're going to have a heart attack, rah, 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 because that's what they've heard rather than that's what they've investigated.
Yeah, that's it.
And I have many aspects in all different areas, I guess, in life that defy conventions, but it seems to me that most people are doing things a certain way, and more often than not, it usually isn't the best way to be doing things.
It goes back to the whole tradition thing, and I'm a little bit too logical or practical for my own good, and I piss people
Welcome
off.
to the club.
Yeah, but there might be some particular tradition or something that's just been going in a particular direction for forever, and people just follow a certain way, and I'll ask the question and say, well, why do you do that, or what's the point of doing that? But for a lot of people, there's that that romantic sort of thought that's associated with tradition, especially tradition more so than just like common practice. But especially in people's youth being brought up a certain way, there's a lot of family orientated, a lot of love and things like that. And then when those things start to fall apart, or people come along and try and challenge that for whatever intention that might be, then people react quite negatively to it. So I see it all the time, and I see all sorts of traditions, all sorts of practices, and I look at it and just go, why is that the case? Like, what's the point of doing that? Oh, well, we just do it because we do it. And sometimes I'm learning a little bit that I need to have a bit more of a balance. Sometimes I just need to leave things be. And I have to ask the second question, okay, it might not have any practical impact or benefit, or might not make a lot of sense logically, but is it being detrimental to anybody else? Is it causing harm or anything like that? And then if all those answers are no, and it's just making people happy, then that's when I sort of go back and go, all right, shut the hell up. Just leave something be. And if it's making someone happy and that's what it is, then so be it. But that's something that I'm still going through at the moment. It's just it's a big challenge. It's a hard one.
I faced those issues throughout my entire life, from childhood right through to adulthood. I always question everything. because I like to actually know,
Yeah,
not be told and
Yeah.
believe.
that's it.
I don't really like running on blind faith there. So
Yeah.
I was, school was an interesting experience for me.
Yeah.
I asked a lot of questions, and generally my teachers for some reason didn't enjoy questions. Not sure what it was.
It's
Yeah.
funny about that. A kid wants to learn.
Yeah, and they're like, stop asking questions and trying to learn.
Yeah, I'm trying to tell you something.
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't ask any questions. I just did the opposite of whatever anybody told me, and it was usually just. I mean, it was for different reasons. It was for attention, and I still have a big problem with being told what to do, and I'm starting to stop in my tracks and sort of be in the moment and question whether what I'm being told is beneficial or whether it's just rubbish.
Yeah.
And so I'm letting my guard down in the appropriate moments in time. But I had a massive problem with any sort of authority. Definitely wanted to have some form of attention. So those two things mixed together were just a recipe for disaster in school. So it's, definitely gave my parents a lot of grief going through, especially the later stages of high school. It was just, especially when here, I'm sure it's the same, like I was in Queensland, but very, very high focus on making decisions for the rest of your life, and from a tertiary point of view with education and whatnot, and getting told that you have to pick certain subjects that are going to put you in the direction of what's going to happen when you walk out of the door at the end of year 12 and go into tertiary education or vocational education. And for a lot of people who just don't know what the hell, it's just too much. I mean, for most of these kids are 15, between 15 and 18, and a lot of them haven't even got the right headspace yet, let alone have a vision to be able to work out what they're going to do for the rest of their life. So that in itself was enough of something for me to rebel against. So I remember always saying, like, how do I know what I'm going to do? And just because I don't go to uni, doesn't mean that I'm not going to be successful, because that was what was drilled into us. If you don't go to, even the people who chose vocational, the vocational path and go through TAFE, there was always a stigma attaching that they were dumber, they weren't as intelligent.
Yeah, definitely.
And so for that reason, I went down the tertiary path, but then I got one of the worst exit scores out of my whole grade. By that point, it was to prove a point. I had no idea what I was going to do, but I just knew that I wasn't going to just conform to what this idea was that was being sort of drilled into us. And
there's a good reason for that. I mean, I've heard a quote, I'm not sure who said it, but all the A and B students are working for C students. Do well academically, it's all good and well, but that doesn't equate to business or financial or personal success or anything else in life as well. There's a lot of emphasis put on maybe the wrong areas. It'd be much nicer if there was components in high school and tertiary education where it was all about trying to find a love or a passion or something that really brings you joy and meaning, more than getting a good grade to get into a high-paid job or get into the corporate world.
And the icing on the cake for me was I sort of blazed through the last couple of years of high school and came
not
out.
Literally.
No, not literally, but I it was almost like a take no prisoners attitude, and I didn't care who got burnt along the way, and it was a very selfish sort of thing, but it was just out of pure frustration that I was trying to find my own identity. But I was being molded to act and think a particular way. And the icing on the cake was within the first 6 months of the following year, majority of those people that were within my class had all either deferred or dropped out of university. And a lot of them are just working the 9-to-5 job. And they're in the same job that they were 10 years ago. And it's just incredible. And look, to a lot of their credit, a lot of them are happy. And that's all they want. They're not any further ambitious to what they've done. They've ticked the boxes of the home, the wife, the kids, etc. And they might have a yearly holiday or once every couple of years holiday. And whatever, everyone's different. But within those first 6 months, and word would get out, go, such and such has dropped out, or such and such has deferred, and I'm just mentally going, tick, that's another one down. And, I was just working a mundane job, so I didn't think I was terribly special, but I knew that all that hard work that I was being told to do that I didn't do
wasn't being misspent.
That's it. And, I found my way in other aspects after that. It took me a little bit longer, but it's sort of had a bit more longevity than what some of these other people have had. So it's definitely good sometimes just to look back and realize that the other thing is I've got a few friends of mine that have got young kids that are going through or about to start that, and they're just struggling. And I just look at them and just go, they're the ones you got to keep an eye on, not for the negative reasons, but for the positive reasons, and give them every opportunity that they can to be themselves. Yeah. And, if they're failing miserably in what they do, or they're, they think, parents think they've got ADHD when more than likely they probably don't. Yeah. They're probably just bright and they just want to learn. And bored. Yeah, that's it. They want to be engaged in something. Then they're the ones that you need to put a lot of attention on and give them the support. So anyway, so I might end on that retrospective look at it all. But nice. I'm going to put a bunch of links to the books and everything in the notes, and with your new venture, have you got anything set up yet as far as a resource for people if they're interested in?
If people wanted to, to have a look at what I'm doing and find out a bit more, I've got a website which is interstellarfinance.com, and people can get in touch, drop me an email. As I sort of said, I'm pretty passionate about this stuff. So anyone that's either thinking about investing or buying a first home, or just curious about how it all works, or even if they're an existing investor but just want to make sure that their finances are structured in the best way to make them sort of go as far as they can and punch above their weight, I'll be happy to hear from them. Yeah, I love it.
Awesome. Sounds good. Oh, thanks,
absolutely.
Ben.
No, my pleasure, Ian.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. I hope you got something out of that. Lots of cool insights and different ways of thinking. We sort of go off on a million different tangents, but that's what I love about it. I love, that's the beauty of conversations. It can just go in any sort of direction with no real agenda or format. And look, I hope you really got something out of it, even if it's just one thing that triggered a thought, or maybe you can go back and apply a couple of these things to your day-to-day life, then fantastic. As I said, there will be an article that Stephen's featured in that will be published soon. And by the time it's actually published, well, this episode's up, his article will be published, and I'll have links in the show notes, and I'll post the link on Facebook as well. So definitely go and check that out. Make contact and let him know what you think. And if there's any questions or anything of the sort, leave a comment on the actual episode page on my website, or leave some comments on Facebook, and I'll definitely direct Stephen there if there's anything in particular that you want to ask him, or just any questions in general. It was a fantastic episode. I definitely look forward to speaking to him again in the future as we both continue on in our journey to pursue whatever success that might be. As always, iTunes, reviews, ratings, please just take couple minutes out of your busy life and help me out big time with doing that. Facebook page, get on there and help me beat the Nazi algorithms that Facebook put on all the posts, and start liking and commenting on stuff. Share links, share pictures, share episodes. If there's an episode that you think someone will like, then pass it on to them, and help me make it bigger and better. And I do appreciate it. And at the very least, thank you for listening. And for those people that are listening for the first time, really appreciate it. Thanks for giving me a shot. And I hope you have enjoyed the episode, and that you'll subscribe and continue to listen to future episodes down the track. And once again, this episode was not brought to you by my 2 complete sets of Jurassic Park cards from 1993. I'll take some photos and chuck them up on Facebook so you can have a look. And if you've got any childhood Jurassic Park memories, then definitely comment on there and let us know, because it was all about dinosaurs back then, and definitely a different time. Thank you so much, and we will see you soon for episode 12. Cheers.